Hi folks, welcome to Set Apart Homestead. This is Travis. So my last video, I think, if I remember correctly, that I uploaded was about some preventative ways of keeping ticks, chiggers, mosquitoes, things like that off of you. You know, natural folk medicine kind of stuff. And due to the response to that, I thought I would make a video on, hold on, the camera's not quite right. I thought I'd do a video on some remedies that I've used of when you get bit, stung, rashes, things like that. Now, this is not a complete list of things to do. This is not in any way medical advice. So don't take my word for it. These are just some things that's worked for me and my experiences. And you know, maybe you've heard of them. Some of you probably know a lot more different ones, and that's fine. And these are just some ones that's worked for me. So, on the thing of like stings, like bee stings, wasps, things like that. Number one, if you're allergic, you need to, if you have something like an EpiPen, you need to use that. Try to get some Benadryl, some antihistamine in you, and get to the doctor. That's just not something to mess with. I've seen that before, and you know that's dangerous, and it can happen very quickly. So you know, try to get to the ER or whatever if you're allergic to stings. If you're not, and it's just painful, one of the things that I have found that's the fastest way to stop that pain is vinegar. Get you a rag or something. Pour a bunch of vinegar in it. And honestly, it doesn't matter if it's white or apple cider vinegar. Both of them will do the same thing. And just put it on that sting, and it almost is instantly that it relieves that pain. And in my experience, is sometimes it's completely gone, as long as there's vinegar on there, until it kind of the venom of that sting kind of works through your system. You know, you may have to reapply with more vinegar. But I found that one works probably the best in my experiences. The other thing that you can do is plantain, which I didn't grab any to show you on the video. I'm sorry. I've got it all over the place and didn't even think about that. But Google it. We're not talking plantain, the thing that looks like a banana. Plantain is a common yard weed that grows just about everywhere other than maybe the desert. And take that. The best way to use it is what's called a spit poultice, which you just grab some leaves and stick them in your mouth and chew on it, kind of get them your spit in there, and take that and put on the sting, and that will also help. If you take, say, like some type of bandage or something and wrap it on to hold it on there, it probably has longer lasting effects than vinegar, but I don't think it's quite as instant effect as vinegar. So you could also use both. Tick bites, mosquito bites, chigger bites, things like that. With ticks especially, there is always that worry of transfer of some type of illness, you know, like Lyme disease, or what is it, spotted elk, something like that, Rocky Mountain fever, whatever. There's all those different ones. I get them all mixed up, but you're all should be aware of those. So, and you could probably include spider bites, non-poisonous spider bites, just your common, you know, like a wood spider or wolf spider. Now, some people are allergic to those, so they react, you know, worse than others. You know, if I get one, usually I just pull it off and that's it. With most of those illnesses that can be transmitted from a tick, most of them, the tick has to be on you for 24 to 48 hours before, about a day and a half usually, before it can actually transmit that into your body. So in other words, if you look down and like, man, a tick just bit me, and you pull it off, the odds are in your favor that you probably have not contracted anything. That's, you know, I'm not a doctor, so don't take my word for it. I'm only going by the things that I've read. Of course, if the bite starts to look very different, you know, rings around it, heat, darkness, pussiness, things like that, yeah, you need to get to a doctor. But honestly, with most tick bites, and I get them all the time, out here. Number one is check for ticks. Check for ticks every day. Every day, every day, every day, every day. When you live out like this, if you're going to be outside, you just make it a routine. If you got kids, you know, they get time for bath, they can either check themselves, check each other, you check them, whatever it is. That's going to be the best preventative of contracting any kind of illness from ticks. You know, if you do get one and it's just irritating you and stuff, you know, you could apply something like a tea tree oil to it that can help, you know, calm it down. There's also like calamine lotion that can help with the itchiness, those types of things. You can also use that, of course, on stings and stuff. But honestly, with most general population, ticks and mosquito bites is just an annoyance, and until it heals up. But you know, there are exceptions to that rule. Same with spider bites. Most spider bites, you know, are not deadly or anything, and even the ones that you can get a little sick, it's usually a, you know, like a low-grade fever for a couple of days. And you know, if you get something like that that's you feel is more serious than just a simple bite, again, go to a doctor. Now, things like poison ivy. The real trick with poison ivy is being aware that you got into it. What it is that causes a rash, it's in the oils of the plant. It's a very oily plant. That oil gets on your body, and then it irritates it, and it causes a rash. So if you're aware that you have gotten in, or very possibly have gotten in to poison ivy, within the first hour or two, if you can get inside and wash that area really good with a good soap, something like a Dawn dish soap or degreaser soap works the very best because it's an oily substance. If you can wash that area really good, the odds of you actually getting a rash from the poison ivy is almost none. A natural plant that you can use is jewelweed. A lot of times, although not always, a lot of times jewelweed grows near poison ivy. And learn to, you know, look that up and become familiar with what jewelweed looks like. Now, there's a lot of misunderstanding with jewelweed. Jewelweed is really only a preventative of keeping it from going to a rash. Once the rash starts, jewelweed loses its effectiveness. It doesn't mean that it can't really help, but jewelweed is really more for preventing a rash from happening. Once you have a rash, honestly, the only thing that's really going to take care of that is to try to dry it up. You need something that will dry the rash up so that it's not oozing, because then you scratch it or it oozes and it spreads it. So one of the things that I have found that works the best on it, and there's over-the-counter stuff that you can buy, but the thing that I found that works the best is witch hazel. Witch hazel, and which is in the alcohol. It's an alcohol base. It is great for drying up stuff like poison ivy. Apply it regularly. You can put some calamine lotion on it to, you know, soothe the itchiness, and in between that, you know, rotate calamine, witch hazel, and do that often throughout the day. There's really no limit to how much witch hazel you can use on your skin. You may get a little dry skin there for a while, but you know, that'll go away. But drying something that will dry that rash out is going to cause it to go away faster. That's really the only thing that you can do with poison ivy. I know there's all kinds of things on the market. You go to, you know, a pharmacy and they have tons of stuff that supposedly work. The reality is, you just got to dry it out. That's the best thing, and try not to scratch it so that it spreads. But if you can get in there and wash it with a good degreaser soap before there's any rash, you'll do great with, you know, probably not getting any of it on you if you get all the, you know, spots off of you that you washed or that you got on you. Another thing, and this is always a touchy subject, and I think it's touchy because of the legal implications of talking about other ways to treat things like a snake bite. So again, I am not giving medical advice. This is from personal experience, from people that I know that have got bitten, that I was actually right there and helped them care for that snake bite, and also things that I have read within the medical community, what they say about it. First off, there is a difference in the United States of snakes. Some snakes are much more deadly than others. In my area, we have rattlesnakes, we have moccasins, venomous ones, and we have copperheads. That's the three that you're going to run into. Of course, there are other snakes, and there's snakes in other states that we don't have here. The most common that you're ever going to find are copperheads and your cottonmouth water moccasins. Their type of venom is different than, say, the rattlesnakes. It's not as strong. It's not as deadly. It's, in fact, in the state of Missouri, there's only been a couple of deaths from a copperhead over the last 50, 60 years. But there's been lots of bites. Copperheads also don't always inject their venom when they bite. So what I'm trying to say is that if you get bit by a snake, the first thing to do is to not panic and think that you're going to die. The reality is in the United States, not very many people die from snake bites because we're pretty good at treating that. So if you get bit by something, well, if you get bit by any snake, you should go to the hospital. You should just do it. You should go and have it checked out. If I get bit by a rattlesnake, well, if I get bit by any snake, what I'm going to tell you I would do. If it was a rattlesnake, I'm probably going to get to the hospital. If it's a copperhead or moccasin, I may kind of think, well, okay, how is my body reacting to this? And the reason is especially on copperheads, there was a study done just a year or two ago, and over the past 20 years of copperhead bites, there was none of those bites that was treated with antivenom in the hospital. And the reason is that doctors have talked about it, that doctors have found that antivenom really is not effective on copperheads and moccasins because their venom is different. And they just basically, put them in a bed, give them some fluids and maybe some other meds, and monitor them for a couple of days until the danger is over. Usually wherever you're bit, it's going to swell and it's going to hurt really, really bad. You may, feel like you're going to black out, and you may black out. So what I've always done is don't suck the venom. Don't cut the wound open, or where it's been bit. Don't do that kind of stuff. There's two things that I immediately would have given. Activated charcoal. Activated charcoal, every home, especially every homestead, every prepper should have a lot of activated charcoal, and I recommend both the capsules and loose. So you take activated charcoal and you make a little poultice, which means you add a little water to make it a sticky paste. Put it on like a 4x4 or whatever, and place it over the bite wound. And change that regularly, every 20-30 minutes at least for the first few hours. I would also give them activated charcoal internally, and give them activated charcoal internally every hour or two. I would also start giving them Benadryl or antihistamine. There are some different plants that work good for snake bites, and they grow differently. They're usually typically not plants that you go and buy at a natural food store. It's something that you're going to find growing around you. I would encourage you to look online and try to find some of those plants and see what grows in your area. And there are some in my area that I'm aware of. And if I had the ability to, I would try to grab one of those plants and also place on the wound. You don't want to elevate the feet too much and cause the venom to rush into the person's heart. Things like that. But yes, you do need to get to a hospital. You do need to seek medical advice and care and stuff. I have experienced people that have not done that, and I have been one of the ones caring for them, and they did fine. They were sick for about 3 days, really sick, fevers and aches and pains, and then they got better. But I'm not saying that's what I would advise you to do. Again, I get a lot of people say, well, hey, you live out there in the Ozarks and there's ticks and chiggers and spiders and snakes and poison ivy. Yeah, there is. I got poison ivy on my legs right now. And I've got probably some mosquito and tick bites on me. It's just what it is. And while there is a danger and an annoyance to all that, I look at the danger and the great annoyance to living in the city. And I compare them, and I figure I feel safer dealing with the Father's creation out here than dealing with crazies, you know, in some big city that's going to run you over and shoot you and steal from you and carry crazy diseases and all that sort of thing. And the smells and the noises. So for me, there's dangers anywhere you go, and living like this are dangers that are acceptable to me. And there are ways to treat them. You know, and I don't use usually chemical type, you know, based treatment. It's mostly natural. So do some research, find that stuff out for you and for yourself, and see what works for you. And sometimes it's trial and error. You know, there may be 10 different natural solutions to a problem, and maybe only 1 or 2 really work for you because of how your body works. So just because you try the first one and it doesn't work, don't give up. You know, try something different, a different plant. And you usually will find one that works well for you. All right. Thank you all for watching, and I'm going to catch you in the next video.